What is up, everybody? It's your boy Mike Mills back with another video. And today I want to talk about how much or how I was able to save 70K in 1 year. But this was back in 2020 and from 2020 to 2021. So so obviously like around the pandemic first started and when everything first started happening. So because that was really the last time I really worked. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all know 2021, I didn't work for real. And then 2022, I worked sparing. I only worked like 6 months out the whole year. Um, but this time, I want to talk about how I was able to make 70 grand and I was able to save 70 grand for the whole year. So now, most of y'all know that I am a merchant mariner. I do go overseas for work and stuff like that, and that is a pretty good job, and it does pay pretty well. At that time, the ship itself, I think I was grossing anywhere between just under four, maybe four, but just under four every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? 4 grand every 2 weeks. So probably like 38, 36 every 2 weeks. So probably take home was around 24, 25, 26. You know what I'm saying? Between 24 and like maybe 2,800 every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And then obviously with that, you can see how much I was able to save. But don't forget, at that time I still had a mortgage I had to pay, which at the time I was paying like $900 a month for the mortgage plus the utilities at the house, and I also had a hefty credit card bill. If y'all remember back then, was trying to do a what is it called, a trucking business. So I had purchased a truck, and I had all the bills that came with the truck. You know what I'm saying? And this is an 18 wheeler. You know what I'm saying? So I had that business. And yes, most of you know it failed. So there's that. So coming onto the ship at that time, I literally had maybe, because I was pretty much depleted because from purchasing the truck to also doing all the maintenance I had to do on that truck. And then it was just a bunch of like minute stuff that I had to do for that business. And it sucked that it failed. But with all that being said, I literally stepped on the ship with maybe a couple $1,000s, like maybe a couple. I think at best I had like $4,000 left after everything I spent on everything. So I was really going onto the ship. I was in a struggle. Like I still had bills to pay and all this stuff, and I had because of that, the trucking business and everything, I was $20,000 in debt, and well, really I was $23,000 in debt, and I still had mortgages and stuff like that. But obviously, my mortgage was being paid by my tenants, so that was great. But I said all that to tell you where I was at in the start of 2020 when I first went to the ship. So I went to the ship, 20 grand in debt. I had maybe $4,000 or $5,000, and obviously the ship paid well, or it paid pretty decent. You know what I'm saying? But it was still like, oh man, I'm not really going to be able to save all that much. So I need to figure something out to where I'm still able to save and pay my bills. So the first couple more, I think literally when I first got on board, obviously the pandemic had not started yet. And, ooh, I shouldn't be saying pandemic. Obviously the hadn't started yet, or it had started, but it wasn't affecting us. I was in Bahrain at the time. It wasn't affecting us at the time. So I was going, I was working and stuff like that. We were still going out having fun. I think I only was able to like enjoy maybe 3 weeks of fun while I was out there. And literally the beginning of March is when, or mid March is when they said, "Hey, everything's locked down. You can't leave the ship." And yeah, it's easy to save because you can't do nothing, but mentally, a lot of people were like going through it. Like, I know a bunch of my friends were just on Amazon all day, just buying random stuff. But for me, I was able to keep myself from spending money. And so I paid 20 grand off. So how I did that was I set up a automatic payment. I did 1 grand at my Navy Federal credit card, and then the other one at my Wells Fargo, because they both. I think Wells Fargo, I had a credit card bill of like 7,000, and then Navy Federal was a credit card bill of like, I don't know. I think it was like, it was seven there, so like 13, maybe 14, and so I set up $1,000 on each, and with that, that brought my income down, obviously $2,000, plus the mortgage I had to pay. I was pretty much paying out $3,000. Yes, my two houses was making me some money, but it wasn't a crazy amount to where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I don't feel it. But I knew I have to pay this down. I have to still be able to save money. So what I did, luckily I didn't have to pay for food at first and anything. So I was able to just do that. And I was just working crazy overtime, making sure I'm making all the money that I can. And so the first like 6 months of being on the ship, I did nothing but pay everything down, pay everything down, pay everything down. Then when I knocked out the 7 grand at the Wells Fargo, I was able to put $2,000 into my Wells Fargo credit card, and I was able to knock that down. It took all the way up until December of 2020 for me to be completely debt free. Well, obviously outside of my mortgage. And with all of that, I was still able to save about 3 to 4 grand, give or take, you know what I'm saying? Because obviously I'm not going out and all I am doing is working. And if y'all don't know, my houses at the time, I think I was making 2,500, maybe 3 grand from my houses, you know what I'm saying? Obviously out of that three grand I had to pay for my mortgage and stuff like that. But that's how much I was making, give or take. Let's say I was taking home about like 7 grand a month, let's say, quote unquote. I don't even think it was that much. I think it was maybe five. But even with that, I was able to pay off most of the stuff that I was paying off. And then, so that brought me from March to December of paying off debt, like fully paying it off and stuff like that. But on top of that, I was still saving. When I finally was debt free, those next 3 months was just, I saved everything. But mind you, during all that, I still had the trucking business. And when I tell you everything failed and crashed and burned, everything failed. My driver quit, my truck pretty much blew up. And then the other driver, he had just quit too. And then it just was like everything was came at me at once. So I was still having to make phone calls, trying to pay certain things. And mind you, a lot of this is stressful. So I'm thinking like, okay, I got to pay for this. I got to pay for this. And one thing that I did learn, if I find the book, there's the book right here and enter. So this book right here, the first couple of chapters, it was called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich." The first couple of chapters talked about um, setting up automatic payments or auto pay. You know what I'm saying? And I never used to do that before because I felt like I wanted to have full control of what is going on regarding my money. But when I started setting up automatic payments, it made things immensely easier, especially because you have to set it up to where you know you have that amount of money to pay. Because at the time, I was bringing in the amount of money I was bringing in, but I was going everywhere. Like, okay, let me try to pay this. Let me try to pay this. Let me try to pay this. I had to sit myself down and be like, what can you spend as far as payments and where can you put the money at? So what I was doing, and this was the actual tricky part because I'm overseas. The one that pays me my rent and all that stuff, they're here at home. So I had to contact everybody, which my mother was one is my property manager. So I had to tell her that, hey, I need you to put the money that I'm getting from rent into this specific account, and then obviously the money that I'm making from my job I had in my other account. So when I was able to do that, I was able to auto pay everything, set everything up because I knew how much I was making, set everything up to where all the payment goes to exactly where I needed to go. So when I knocked out this 7 grand I was able to do 2 grand at my Navy Federal credit card, plus the however much I was actually making for my rent was going towards the mortgages. So it was a lot of brain power. I know what you're thinking, like, oh, it seemed pretty easy. No, it was a lot of brain power to finagle all your money to get it to where everything needs to go where it needs to go. So I'm able to not worry about it and just continue to save. So with all that being said, once I knocked out the credit cards, so that was, yeah, it was like 20, 21 grand. Once I was able to knock that out, it took all the way up from March to December to be completely debt free outside of my mortgages and everything. And then I was still saving at least about 3 to 4 grand with my income from my job. So once I was able to do that, everything pretty much was clockwork. So once I officially finished paying for everything, that was December, I was still attached to the ship. So in January, from January 1st all the way to March, to mid-March, everything was my money at that point. Obviously, I still had to pay for my mortgage, but everything that I was making was mine. And that's how I was able to save those extra dollars. And when I did all that, well, obviously, when I went back home and I looked at my account and I saw everything that I saved, it was around 72K. You know what I'm saying? That was saved in my account. And I know a lot of you thinking it was, oh, you making so much money, so that's why you was able to save that. Yeah, but I also had a lot of money I had to pay out. You know what I'm saying? The 20K was just the debt that I acquired. And then there was, yeah, I still had to pay out my mortgage and some other things that I had to pay for in regards to the business, which crashed and burned and cost me so much money. But with the things that I set in place because of this book, things I set in place, like automatic payments and doing making sure you be in full control of what your money is doing and where it's going, it was pretty much clockwork how I was able to save my money because I knew I was going to be able to at least save $3,000. And even when they was allowed us to get off the ship, I gave myself a little allotment of how much I was able to spend while I was out. And mind you, at that time I was locked down for March, April, May, June, for 5 months. Like we couldn't get off the ship. The only thing you could, like, freedom was taking the trash out to the pier. That was the most freedom I had. So we were just stuck on the ship. But I'm glad that happened because it gave me 5 months to figure out everything out what I need to do and be able to save this amount of money. And like I said, I know it's a lot of y'all thinking like, oh, you had all this money coming in. That's how you was able to save. But how many of you actually make pretty decent money and you still don't have any? You know what I'm saying? So this is pretty much how I was able to do it. And I hope it helps you guys. Like automatic payments and setting up a plan, that is fully like 100% the best way to start like saving money and get ahead of your bills. Obviously, you can't save money if you're not making any money. So probably the first thing most of y'all are gonna have to do is either get a job. I know this seems condescending, but I'm saying like either get a job that pays pretty decent or figure out a side hustle. Well, not really a side hustle, figure out a hustle that you can do that is able to bring you in a little bit more money. Mine was more to the extreme. Obviously, like $20,000 in debt and in certain things is kind of like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? But I'm assuming most of y'all that watch this are not in that was not in that kind of predicament. You may have like $5,000 or $6,000 in debt, or you may have like 10 or 11 because of school or what have you. But that is the debt that may seem unreachable to pay off for you guys. But I'm telling you, if really you set up a plan and you're really gonna have to really work hard, which I know a lot of you hate hearing that, but you're gonna have to work hard, whether it be a job or finding out, because everybody has a skill. I feel like if you're watching this, I guarantee you have some kind of skill that you can commercialize. And if you can do that and might have to door to door knock on people's doors, be like, hey, whether it be you saying like, I can cut your grass or I can power wash your driveway. Like these are skills that actually pay pretty decent. You know what I'm saying? I know one of my friends, all he does is power wash now. Yeah, he had to scavenger some money to get the equipment, but he was like, once I started getting the equipment and stuff like that, and I started door to door, knocking on doors, putting out ads and stuff like that, he said people just started like calling me. So he was able to like regroup a lot of his money or recoup a lot of his money relatively quick. But he's like, everything else is gonna be a struggle. But if you set everything up and you know what you need to do, I guarantee you can make it. Or at least you can get yourself out of this whatever debt that you have, and you're going to be able to maybe not save 70 grand, but you'll be able to save a, a specific goal that you set, you know? But that's my story. Remember, that happened in 2020, well, 2020, 2021. And then I'll pretty much know what happened after that if you watch my channel. But I think that's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I love you guys. And if you want more content like this, let me know. And if you want to know more about the merchant marine stuff, I have obviously I'll put a playlist right here. And if you want me to talk more about my houses, let me know in the comments down below, because I'll talk about that more also, how I was able to buy my first one and everything. But until then, I love you guys. Deuces.